Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how to solve equations that are in the forms of ax plus b is c. So this equation right here is in the forms of ax plus b equals c, because as you can see, the 4 is your a, the 13 is your b, and then the 45 is your c. Okay, we have a procedure of how to do it. It's pretty simple. So first thing you have to do is use the addition or subtraction properties to isolate the term with the variable. So looking at this equation here, you can tell this is the term with the variables. So the 4x is the term with the variable. So our goal is to isolate this term, meaning you got to get the 4x all by itself on one side of the equal sign. Therefore, you have to get rid of the positive 13. How do you get rid of the positive 13? How do you make it completely go away? Well, to do that, you do the opposite. So what is the opposite of positive 13? Well, that's going to be negative 13. So we minus 13. And then we do it to this side of the equal sign. We have to do it to the other side of the equal sign. So minus 13. Alright, so what happened now? So what we did is we used the subtraction property to isolate the term with the variable by minusing 13 to both sides. So bring down the 4x. And then positive 13 with negative 13. Those two add up to 0, so they're all gone. And then 45 minus 13 is going to give you 32. So that's step number 1. Step 2 is to use multiplication or division property to remove any values that are in front of the variable. So here you have the 4 in front of the variable, so it's a times 4. So how do you get rid of the 4? Well, to get rid of the 4, you do the opposite of multiply, and that is to divide by 4. So if I divide this by 4, I gotta do it to the 32. So here 4 divided by 4 is 1. So you're left with 1x, or you're left with x. They're the same thing. 1x and x is the same. And here 4 goes into 32 8 times. Okay, so x is 8. So that's step 2. And then step 3, you can check it. So to check it, you would want to plug the 8 back into the original equation for x. So the original, I have 4x plus 13. So if that comes out to 45 when you plug the x in, then you know your answer is right. So what's x? Well, x is 8. So 4 times 8 is 32. And then plus 13 give you 45. So therefore, 45 equals to 45. Therefore, you know your answers is right. Okay, let's take a look at another one here. So we're solving equations that are in the forms of ax plus b equals to c. So this equation's right here is in the forms of ax plus b equals to c. As you can see, the 5 is your a, the negative 2 is your b, and then 23 is your c. So how do we solve linear equations that are in the forms of ax plus b equals c? Well, we have a procedure how to do it. So here's the procedure. Well, step 1 is to isolate the 5x. As you can see, 5x is connected with the minus 2. So we have to get rid of this minus 2. So how do I make the negative 2 go away? Well, you do the opposite. So what's the opposite of negative 2? Well, that would be plus 2. So opposite of negative 2 is plus 2. So if you add 2 to the left, you have to add 2 to the right side of the equal sign. So what we do here is we bring down the 5x. So 5x is, because negative 2 plus 2 is 0, so those are gone. And then on the right hand side, you got 23 plus 2. That makes it 25. So that is step number 1. Step 2 is to use multiplication or division property to remove any values that are in front of the variable. So we have a 5x in front of the variable. That's a times 5. So how do you get rid of the times 5? Well, to get rid of it, you do the opposite. Opposite of multiply is divide. So we want to divide this by 5. So if you divide this by 5, you got to do it here because it's division property of equality. So meaning whatever you do to one side, you got to do it the same to the other side. So we got to divide this by 5. Okay, 5 divided by 5 is 1. So you're left with x. And then 5 goes into 25 5 times. So x is 5. And you can check it. So to check it, you want to plug 5 back into the original equation. So here you have 5 times what number? X minus 2 is 23. So what did we get for x? Well, we got 5 for x, so you want to put 5 in here. Okay, so x is 5, so now you go 5 times 5, that's 25. Okay, and then you minus 2 from it. That'll give you 23. So you got 23 is 23. So that's how you know your answers is right. Okay, let's take a look at another one here. So we're solving an equation that is in the forms of ax plus b equals to c. So this right here is in the forms of ax plus b equals to c, because as you can see, the 4 is your a, the 6 is your b, and then the 30 is your c. Let's go ahead and solve this using the procedure. So step 1 is to use addition or subtraction properties to isolate the term with the variable. So we have to isolate the 4x. So that means we have to get that by itself. So this is the term with the variable. So we have to isolate it. So that means we got to get rid of the positive 6. So how do you get rid of the positive 6? Well, you do the opposite. Okay, so opposite of, what's opposite of positive 6? Well, that would be negative 6. So we're using the subtraction property to isolate in this case. So minus 6. So if you minus 6 to the left, you get a minus 6 to the right. Okay, so now what you want to do is bring down the 4x. So the 4x comes down. So you have 4x was positive 6. Take away 6 is 0. So that's gone. And then here you have 30 minus 6. So that makes it 24. So we're done with step 1. Step 2 is to use multiplication or division properties to remove any value in front of the variable. So what's in front of the x? Well, we have a 4, so we have a times 4. So to get rid of the times 4, you have to do the opposite, which is to divide. So here we're going to go ahead and use the division property, okay, to remove it. So divide by 4. If you divide this size by 4, you have to divide right side by 4. So 4 over 4 is 1. So you're left with x. And then 4 goes into 24 6 times. So x is 6 to make the sentence true. And then last thing we have to do is check it. So here you got 4x, so 4 times what number? Plus 6 is 30. We found x to be 6, so we are going to replace 6 with x's. So 4x, so that's 4 times 6. So 4 times 6, you know it's 24. And then when you add 6 to that, it's going to give you 30. So that's how we know it's right. So x is 6 is the correct answer. And that's how you solve the equation that is in the forms of ax plus b equals to c. Okay, let's take a look at another one. So we're solving equation that is in the forms of ax plus b equals to c. So this right here, you have ax plus b equals to c, because the 7 is your a, the 10 is your b, and then the negative 39 is your c. So this is in the forms of ax plus b equals to c. So we're going to solve this using the procedure we have, how to solve it. So step number 1 is to use addition or subtraction property to isolate the terms with the variable. So here we have to isolate 7x. So meaning we got to get the 7x all by itself on one side of the equal sign. So we have to get rid of the plus 10. And how do you get rid of the plus 10? Well, you do the opposite. So what's opposite of plus 10? Well, that would be minus 10. Okay, so we're using subtraction property of equality to get rid of the positive 10. So if I minus 10 this side, I got a minus 10 to the other side. Okay, so that's step number 1. Okay, so what we do now is bring down the 7x. Okay, so bring down the 7x. And then here you got positive 10. Take away 10 is 0. So that is gone. And then simplify what's on the right hand side of the equal sign. So you got two negative numbers. So when you add those up, it comes out to negative 49. Okay, so that's step number 1. Step 2 is to use multiplication or division property to remove any values that are in front of the variable. So in front of x, we have a multiplied by 7. So how do you get rid of multiplied by 7? So, well, you will want to do the opposite. What's opposite of times 7? Well, opposite of multiply is divide. So you want to go ahead and divide this by 7. And then divide this by 7. So what you're doing is you're using division property of equality. Okay, so 7 over 7 is 1. That means you're left with x. And then on this side, 7 goes into 49 7 times. And then when you have a negative divide by a positive, it goes negative. So x equals to negative 7. Okay. And then step 3, we have to check it. So 7x, so 7 times what number? Plus 10 is 39. And we know that x is to be negative 7. So x is negative 7, so we put negative 7 in here. So now you have 7 times negative 7. Well, that's negative 49. And then plus 10. Well, negative 49 plus 10 is negative 39. Okay, so that's how we know it's right. So x is negative 7. All right, so that's how you solve equation that is in the form of ax plus b is c. Let's take a look at another example. So we're solving equations that are in the form of ax plus b is c. So let's take a look at this one. Is this in the form of ax plus b equals to c? Well, you have ax, so the 1/2 is your a, plus b, so the 5 is your b, and then the a is your c. So yes, we have it. So we're going to solve this using the procedure we have for solving it. So step 1 is to use addition or subtraction property to isolate the term with the variable. So we have to isolate the 1/2 x, so that's the term with the variable because of the x. X is a variable. So how do we get rid of the plus 5? Well, you do the opposite. So what's opposite of positive 5? Opposite of positive 5 is negative 5. So we're using subtraction property of equality. So if you take away 5 here, you got to take away 5 to the other side. Okay, so what we do now is we bring down the 1/2 x. So we have a 1/2 x. And then positive 5, take away 5 is 0. So that's gone. And then on the right hand side, you have 8, take away 5. So that's going to give you 3. Okay, so that's step 1. Now step 2 is to use the multiplication or division property to remove the value that are in front of the variable. So here you have 1/2, you have a multiply by 1/2. So if you were to divide by 1/2, okay, if you were to divide by 1/2, well, divide by 1/2 is the same as multiply by the reciprocal of 1/2. So we're going to multiply this by the reciprocal of 1/2, and that's going to be 2/1. Again, divide by 1/2 is the same as multiply by the reciprocal of 1/2. So if we multiply the left side by 2/1, we're going to do the same thing on the right hand side, 2/1. Okay, and then here you're just going to multiply into a 1, so you're left with x. And then here 3 times 2 is 6, divide by 1 is also 6, so x equals to 6. Alright, so that's step 2. Step 3 is to check it. So we have 1/2 x and then plus 5. And if that comes out to 8, then we know it's right. So what do we put in for x? Well, we found x to be 6, so we're going to put 6 in for x. So what's half of 6? Well, half of 6 is 3. What's 3 plus 5? Well, 3 plus 5 is 8. Okay, so we know 6 is right. All right, so that's how you solve an equation that is in the form of ax plus b equals to c. Okay, let's take a look at another one. So we're solving an equation that is in the form of ax plus b equals to c. And here we have it. So ax, so the 3/5 is your a, plus b, the -4 is your b, and then the a is your c. So we're solving this. So this is an equation that is in the form of ax plus b equals to c. And we're going to use the procedure to solve it. So here's the procedure. First thing we have to do is use the addition or subtraction property to isolate the term with the variable. So here's the term with the variable. So first thing we got to do is isolate this term, meaning you got to get this term all alone on one side of the equal sign. So that means you got to get rid of the -4. So how do you get rid of the -4? You do the opposite. So what's opposite of -4? Well, opposite of negative 4 is positive 4. So if you add 4 to the left, you got to add 4 to the right. So we're using the addition property of equality. And then here we bring down the 3 over 5x. And then negative 4 plus 4 is 0. So those two add up to 0. And then on the right hand side, 8 plus 4 is 12. Alright, so that's step 1. Step 2 is to use multiplication or division property to remove any values that are in front of the variable. So we have a 3/5, so we have multiplied by 3/5. So to make the 3/5 go away, you divide, because you do opposite of multiply. So you divide by 3/5. Now divide by 3/5, okay, it's the same as multiply by the reciprocal of 3/5. So what is the reciprocal of 3/5? Well, the reciprocal of 3/5 is 5 over 3. Okay, so divide by 3 over 5 is the same as multiply by 5 over 3. So if you multiply by 5 over 3 on the left, you got to multiply by 5 over 3 on the right hand side. Alright, so here you have 15 over 15, so that turns into a 1. So you're left with 1x, or x by itself. And here you got 12 times 5 is 60. 60 divided by 3. So 3 goes into 60 is going to be 20. So x is 20. Okay, so that's step 2. Now step 3, we are going to check it. So here you have 3 over 5 times x. Alright, and then minus 4 is 8. Okay, that's the original equation. And what's your x? Well, we found x to be 20. So we're going to put 20 in here. Okay, so 3 over 5 times 20. Well, 3 times 20 is 60. 5 goes into 60, so you got 60 over 5. Okay, 5 goes into 60 12 times. And then you got 12 take away 4. Is that 8? Well, yes, 12 take away 4 is 8. So you have 8 equals to 8. So that's how you know your answers is right. Please help share and subscribe down below. Thank you, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.